go ahead and get started. I'm going to play our standard disclaimer here.
This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred.
Okay, very good. So here's a look at what we have on our agenda for today. We can say hello. We kind of have already been saying hello. We're a small group today, but we've got a few updates from OIE that we'll make sure to go over before we close out today's sessions. But we wanted to spend the bulk of our time around some program sharing. Something in response to your feedback during previous talking circles, you had asked about some program sharing specifically around the GEPRA measures. So we'll get into a couple of those today, and then we'll make sure that you get some updates on some upcoming events and things to look forward to on your calendar that way. All right. So in previous sessions, we had spent time in June, we spent some time sharing around GEPRA measures 1 and 2 around capacity building. And so today we thought we would devote some time to GEPRA measures 3 and 5. Number 3, the number of education programs, or I think it's C on the screen here, the number of education programs directly administered by grantees, as well as number 5, the number of work-based learning experiences created as a result of those capacity building experiences built during the STEP grant. So here's what I thought we would do. Although we're a small group, this doesn't have to be super formal. This is really, this round robin process is really just a ways that we can make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to speak and ask questions and be heard. That's really the aim here. So I have a few questions, guiding questions for each round. The first one is really just program sharing, where you can each program can share with us what activities and services you're either planning to offer or offering under GEPRA measures 3 and 5. And then which activities, maybe if you're still in the planning and thinking stage, what kinds of activities or services will be most beneficial to your schools and communities, and talking a little bit about how you know that and how you plan to address some of those community needs. So just sharing that for that first round, and then the second round is where we could sort of respond to share any wonderings or questions maybe that came up as we were listening to our colleagues. And then finally, just some open discussion to respond freely as things come up and see where that conversation takes us. Does that sound okay? All right. So around the program offerings, we thought we would first, before we dive into some sharing, actually share with you some examples of tribal education programs of things that tribal education departments are engaged in and offering to their communities. So I pulled up this report, and I can drop this into the chat box here. So if you want to explore it further at your leisure, you can have it there. But this is actually from the tribal tribal education. It's right there, Tribal Education Department National Assembly. I don't know why I blanked on that, since I know this group. This report was compiled with some surveying, as well as some telephone interviews and some publicly available information. It represents some practices and strategies from those 7 nations that you see listed on the report title there. So it's not every single tribe, but it's a sampling. And so let's just go ahead and take a look at some examples. This is not an exhaustive list of activities, of course, that tribal education agencies engage in. This is really represents a handful. The report represents a handful of TEAs that are in operation. And there's other programs and activities that I didn't list on here, but I wanted to pull out the ones that were specific to K-12. And kind of cover that examples of federal, state, local, or private education programs that support elementary and secondary students. So some of the programs described here may be supported with other dollars or other federal funds, state dollars, or some are even supported with revenue from tribally run businesses, including state license plate fees and things like that. So your STEP funds may be used to help kind of get organized or prepared for this program administration, but you may be finding like some of these examples using other funds to actually deliver those direct services. So I'll talk through each of these briefly here. On the left-hand side of the screen are some examples of services and activities, and maybe you're considering or planning for some of these even as well. So tutoring, some examples from that report, some of the tutoring takes place in local schools or in tribal community settings and programs. Homework help or one-on-one tutoring on reservations. Some tribes operate after-school programs or clubs that can have focus such as a language or college and career planning. Attendance is one that came up a couple of times in the report. So the tribe might have committees that do outreach to their students, or maybe working directly with schools, or even providing some advisory, serving in an advisory capacity to schools or other groups about how to address attendance and truancy. Childcare services is one that was present across several tribes. Transportation for programs or field trips or college tours was something else. Library resources or programming. So resource centers like libraries may be offering summer reading programs. Some tribal operated museums or cultural centers might be hosting events for targeting different groups, including students. College and career fairs, whether they're operated and hosted by the tribe, or maybe they're taking their students to college and career fairs, operated by somebody else. Life and coping skills. There was an example in the report there. This one was sometimes coupled along with family education, but focused on the K-12 population around communication skills or self-esteem and anger management. The Jemez Pueblo, I think, was an example where they have a program to really targeting 4th and 5th graders, as well as high school. Then they noted that those were some really critical age that they saw their students needing this kind of support. Same Pueblo, also offering some mentoring with pairing high school students and college students, and administering federal programs. So Johnson O'Malley was a common program that was named, family and childhood education programs. Some tribes administer some of their title education programs. The Cherokee Nation was one example of that. And then on the right-hand side, you see all the different iterations of the schools and colleges that these tribes offer as well. Early childhood and Head Start programs, BIE schools, whether they're contract or grant schools, charter schools, depending on the state charter laws. And then some interesting iterations of schools, state compact schools between states and tribes. Some tribes are operating colleges and universities. Several are engaged in the accreditation processes, whether it's for their college or their charter schools and such, schools that they operate. And then teacher credentialing was one that came up as well. Developing the criteria and process for language and cultural certifications, working closely with their state education was one example of that. And then managing some nonprofits, that was the way that tribes found to support K-12 students with academic success. So that's just some samplings of some programs offered, and you probably have some other ideas, or maybe this is bringing up ideas for you. On this slide, I wanted to share some examples of how tribal education agencies are approaching that work-based learning experience. And this information came from the report, as well as some publicly available information I was able to glean from their website. So I'm sure if we were actually able to sit down with some of these folks, we'd learn more about these approaches. And I'm sure that there's some overlap too in these different approaches, but they definitely give us some ideas about how we can tackle this work. So let's see here. So first we have an example from the Seminole tribe. And their program works to place students in ages 14 to 24 into an 8-week program, which runs over the summer. The students are placed in 14 different tribal departments, including, culture or recreation, or boys and girls clubs, and some other tribally operated businesses, or businesses in the local area there, including a museum, a swamp safari business, I think that's tribally operated, fire and rescue, and others. So really working within their government and businesses to provide those work-based learning experiences. This example from the Jemez Pueblo is an example of how they, this operates under sort of the umbrella of vocational education or vocational rehabilitation, but they do operate what they call Project HOPE, which stands for Hands-On Preparation Experience for Youth. So that program provides culturally responsive, culturally appropriate services to American Indian students with disabilities, really who reside within that certain radius of the Pueblo. So that they can prepare for and engage in employment. They have an aspect of that that's really targeted towards youth. And then here's an example from Eastern Band of Cherokee, where they have some opportunities there. If you go to their website, there's actually a number of different internship and summer employment opportunities, some of which are operated by the tribe, some are totally different, outside the tribe operated, but they provide that information for their students. One example from their webpage is a tribal summer youth internship program that takes high school students to 15 college campuses, really familiarizes them with the campus environment. And then another example on there too, it was the Harrah's Cherokee Casino Resort Summer Internship, where the tribe has actually worked closely with that company to provide opportunities for employment or internship, as well as supports, right, for being successful in their roles and having a good experience. So 3 different approaches there, working within and within the tribe and with other agencies, and leveraging other opportunities to provide those work learning experiences. just wanted to share those with you. And now that we've had some examples, let's go ahead and engage in some program sharing. We'll do this in the 3 rounds that I mentioned earlier, and I've listed in reverse alphabetical order just for the fun of it, our order of operations. So we'll maybe just, do we have, I don't know if we have anybody on from VTech today, but
No VTech
okay.
or Moshpee yet.
Okay. All right. So we're still still the 2 programs here, but that's good. I know you're doing a lot of good things, and let's go ahead and Carl, if you want to maybe get us started with the first round here, and just share with us, the activities and services maybe you're planning or thinking about, or anything else that we just shared that might have inspired you, and what you're finding is going to be most beneficial for your school and community. And then we'll turn it over to Blue Lake.
Okay. Well, we have recently received a grant. It's called a Choices Grant. I think you guys are familiar with it, accessing choices in education. So we actually have a tutoring center set up, and we also have interns that are working with the tribe. As far as the workplace learning, we're actually identifying organizations and going to be reaching out to them soon so that we could set up anything from just like a job shadowing, just a few days of job shadowing just to get students familiar with that. So that's part of our plan, and then doing some pre-internships. But we are in the planning stage and identification of partners that we can work with folks on in the community, different health professions. That's a big one in Alaska. And we have, tribally compacted health services right here pretty close to us. So that's one that we'll be looking at, and some others also, just in different fields that are high needs in Alaska, and just identifying what those are and who the willing partners are. So that's something that we're doing. Tutoring services, that's up and running for the summer months, and we're actually using some of the COVID that the tribe received to get that up and running. And we're remodeling a really nice big facility, and that's taking a lot longer than we had planned, but we'll be opening a preschool for, I think it's 0 to 4, it might be 0 to 5, but 0 to 4 for sure. And so we're rounding up curriculum for that. We used to have a grant when I worked for the school district. We had a native preschool that was funded through IEA funds, and had developed a curriculum. And so we're trying to get our hands back on that curriculum so that we can use that in our preschool. So that's just some of the things we're doing. I mean, there's so many, and I know Esther's on. She might want to share. I know Esther's assistant project manager for our STEP grant, and she also has a couple kids of her own that have been participating. So Esther, you want to add on some of the other activities? I know you're familiar with Aisha's program and Cheyenne's program.
Sure. Good morning. Yeah, my 2 daughters, they just joined the Passion to Lead, which is a youth leadership program, also with the tribe, where we recruit 6th graders on up that display leadership skills. And we just launched another workshop this week where the kids are going to be coming up with their own goals for the year. And also we recruited more students because of the Choices Grant, because we were able to get more students to come in for our activities. We were able to identify new leaders for the leadership program. And I work with that a lot just because I like interacting with all the leaders, and my 2 daughters enrolled also. And so they also help with the STEAM Academy and the Fab Lab. And they just finished these chairs that they designed themselves, and they really put a lot of time and effort. That's going to be auctioned off this summer.
Yeah. the interns also, the interns that the tribe has, I think there's five high school age interns, and they're doing projects for the elders and checking the fish wheel, which is basically a wheel that sits in the river and collects fish and deposits them in a holding tank, and then it's all salmon. So they're collecting those and distributing those to elders. So there's a few programs kind of related to workplace learning, but we plan to expand that this, especially now that COVID restrictions are being lifted and we can have students placed safely in community businesses and industry. What was number 5? I don't have it in front of me, and
That is the work-based learning.
So what's number 3 then?
Experience. Yep. That is the number of programs. Here, I'm trying to bring it up. There it is.
Oh yeah.
The number of education programs directly administered by the grantee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have the Johnson O'Malley, and I think we have a Justice grant. Also, we have a state STEP grant, which is, quite a bit different than the federal grant. But so we're just matching students up with post-secondary career tech education opportunities, truck driving, welding, diesel mechanics, that sort of thing. So those programs are all up and running pretty nicely. One of the things, we just became tribal education agency a year ago. So, we're still kind of building our structure for that. But, what I see happening in the future is we'll probably go after the IEA funds that the school district receives and make that part of our program, and then do some graduation coaching, something to help students launch, juniors and seniors launch out of high school and land successfully somewhere, that they want to be, help them with their ASVAB and SAT and college applications and scholarship applications and that sort of thing. So I know a lot of the TEAs, and TEDNA works with quite a few tribes in securing those funds. That's something over the long term. This COVID money is going to run out, and the STEP grant money will run out. And so we'll be looking at other sources of funding, and the IEA funds could be something that could really assist us in the long term with our K-12 education programs. And I just feel like the tribe can do a much better, more targeted approach to using those funds and providing services to students. Currently, the school district is blending those funds with migrant ed and title and things, and the people that they're hiring don't represent the people that they're serving so much, demographically or ethnically, or don't have the background to work with Alaska Native students. So we want to change that. We want to increase those services and target the clientele that money's meant to target. That's not happening so much, but so that's what we see happening in the near future. Within a year or so, we should be able to do that. And of course, Connect Tribe is also in the process of developing a charter school. So that process is quite a ways along. The facility is going to be, building the facility is going to be a big challenge, but I think we can overcome that. I think that's number 6 for us. And that's the other thing that we've been working on. We have the application, 90% done. We're in the process of identifying and selecting candidates for the academic policy committee, which is basically the school board for the charter school. And we're reaching out to people that have been on in our meetings and on our steering committee that will be good candidates to serve. The tribe selects 3 of those, 2 of them are elected. And once we get the APC seated, we'll be reviewing the application with that group and putting the final touches on that, submitting it to the district within about 30 to 60 days. We should get that submitted to the district, and then from there it goes to the state for charter school application approval. And assuming those things go fairly well, pretty efficiently, we should, our plan right now has not changed. We hope to open the doors to the charter school in about a year, a little over a year. We have to do some temporary facilities, you know, while they're finishing up construction, and that's what we'll do.
Just a few things going on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else there that you wanted to?
No, you know, that's, if there's questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them, but, you know, it's just like once a few small steps, you know, there's a lot of steps involved in this. And so we're just, you know, keeping, you know, with the charter school, that's taken a lot of our attention, and working with the tribal council, making sure that we have our bylaws for the APC and those reflect, you know, the mission and vision of the tribe, and as far as K-12 education, and then, you know, keeping the tribal council involved, but not to the point where they're down in the weeds, by having the APC seated as kind of an intermediary governing body, and just trying to let all those things work together, and bringing people along in the understanding of school budgets and school processes, and, you know, small things which, you know, aren't that small really. Or what's the number of credits required for graduation? Because we're looking at a K-12 school, so we'll have high school students, and we'll be the first high school charter school in the Valley. And in our application, we can apply for graduation credits that are less than what the district requires. So how will the school board respond to that? And how will the district respond to that? And then how do we respond back to that? So it's just, some of those things are upcoming, and those are, you know, those are things on my mind as we do the charter school. I think the, you know, other parts of the STEP grant should move along pretty smoothly, and we have a good partnership and working relationship with the school district that we've had for a long time. But they have a new federal programs director who is basically our contact with the school district. So bringing her up to speed, and then at the same time, you know, letting them know we're a partner, and we want to work together, but we also have our own ideas on how things should be done, and maybe we don't always agree, but we can still get things done.
For sure. Partnerships are all about give and take, right? Finding that common ground. That's awesome. Well, before we get into questions, and Allison and Lisa, I don't know if any came up for you, but I want to give you an opportunity to do a little of your own program sharing, and then we can open up for questions.
Okay, I feel I share a lot all the time, so I don't want to overburden everybody as I talk. I'm verbose. I'm sorry. So with regards to what our STEP grant is doing, right now, Lisa is currently working on recruitment videos for recruiting Native American persons to become teachers in our programs, getting a designated single subject credential for CTE. And she's working on that presentation, and at the same time recruiting employers to be a part of our modern, and I'm going to tell you, we changed the name from Modern Youth Apprenticeship Academies to Modern Youth Internship Academies. In consultation with our consortium partners, our LEAs, College of the Redwoods told us, you know, every time we say apprenticeship, that has a very specific meaning with regards to the labor board. And so when you say apprenticeship, lots of our businesses go, oh no, apprenticeship, it has all of these things that go along with it, that legal terms. And so they made a suggestion to us that we would be able to recruit more people into our business partnerships for internships if instead of using apprenticeship, we used internship. So we're changing it from Modern Youth Internship Academies, Apprenticeship Academies, to Modern Youth Internship Academies. And through doing this, I've already recruited another organization. So our 6 industry clusters are being worked on right now to recruit businesses to become our experiential learning sites. And we've recruited the California State Parks so far. We've recruited Hogs Island Oyster Farms and the Fox Farms. So because we're focusing right now on one of our career clusters in this recruitment is the Agricultural and Natural Resources Career Industry Cluster. And so on the Rancheria, we have a community garden where we're doing 4-H program and an agribusiness program. So we've got 2 greenhouses that are producing and a garden that's producing vegetables, herbs, teas for our casino restaurants, as well as our elders nutrition program. And we have hired through our NYCP grant, we're piloting internships for students to see how that works and what we have to do, what processes and forms, and what kind of counseling needs to happen, what support services need to happen around an internship. So we're piloting that as we're developing it to roll it out to other people. So the students are employed by the Rancheria right now, and we have 2 graphic arts and technology interns, 2 agriculture, agribusiness interns. Our business and construction trades internship just ended. He needed the summer off, so we ended that for him. He's going to start back up again in the fall on his next round of internship. And I'm interviewing an intern tomorrow to work with California State Parks. So we had 5, we have 4, and we're going to have 5 again internships in the business and construction trade, the information and technology career cluster, and the agribusiness, the agriculture and natural resources career. So 3 career clusters we've piloted so far. 2 of them, like I said, the graphic arts and the agriculture one are currently happening right now. And we'll start the natural resources one with California State Parks. We're interviewing tomorrow, that intern, and hopefully he'll start by August 1. So that's what's currently happening with our planning and what we're currently offering, because we're directly serving students under the NYCP grant, but we're doing all of the planning and program construction under the STEP grant to recruit teachers to then teach these classes, which we're going to have in a block schedule with the high schools right now. They're going to have basically book classes with the College of the Redwoods, so they'll earn credit with College of the Redwoods for these courses. And then the lab class is going to be at our campus in our makerspace, learning the skills, the actual skills of how to do it in semester 1. So they have the book class and the lab class, 3 days a week in the book class and 2 days a week in the lab with our Native American instructors. And then in the second semester, the lab class turns into work study. So they'll be placed, we'll have an employment placement program where the students are then placed with one of our industry partners, our business partners, and then they will work. We're looking at the minimum requirement for them to get the credit for the classes is 10 hours a week for 18 weeks. So that's a minimum of 180 hours to get their credits for the year for their units to graduate with high school units and college units. And we're looking at going anywhere from 200 to 380 hours for the total. So they would have lab class for a semester, internship during the school year, and then a summer internship. So they would increase their hours from 10 hours a week up to 20 hours a week during the summer. So they would get intensive career hands-on training at that point. That's the plan right now. And yeah, we've got a lot of different agreements happening. I've got, for all the different school districts that want to be a part of this, we're starting it's a cradle to career concept. So we're going to involve all 31 school districts, even though we only have 7 high school districts. We're going to involve all of them because we want to start career shadowing and career day and career exploration and all of that younger, like even as early as 5th grade, where we start discussing about what do you want to do with your life, and here you go. So we're going to do data sharing agreements with 31 different school districts to cover grades K through 12. Yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Lots and lots going on there.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share? Either of those GEPRA measures, the work-based learning experiences, or the where is that? There it is. Or the education programs.
So I think I covered a little bit of both. The education program, the Modern Youth Internship Academies, where we're developing the book classes with the lab classes. That's the education programs. We will be running the lab. That will be our teachers, and actually I didn't even mention this, I just negotiated on Friday with Humboldt County Office of Education. They are one of our consortium partners under the NYCP grant, and we had used a contract with them to have our mobile makerspace teacher go to our 31 different school districts. In negotiation with them on Friday and yesterday with the teacher, we are going to be moving out of a contract relationship with them and bringing the teacher on as a tribal employee. So they'll be our first credentialed teacher under contract with the tribe to teach. That's a huge step for us to administer our own teacher contract. So that's our very first one. And
Congrats.
that was a little hairy. I'm still working it out with the teacher, and yeah, so that's our educational program we're directly administering. We're actually going to directly take that from the Humboldt County office and do it ourselves now. And
we're really excited about it too. And this person is just top notch.
She's fantastic. She's fantastic. And so that is one of the educational programs we're taking over from the county. We're going to take that, the mobile maker technician that goes to all of the school sites. And I think I discussed the work-based learning experience opportunities. So
Great stuff. Great. Thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah.
What questions now? I mean, it's just the two programs here today, but what kinds of, do you have questions for each other? Did you hear something that made you think about something or spark an idea?
I had a question for Carl.
Mhm.
Carl, you were talking about the units for graduation for your charter school, and I was wondering, you had mentioned that they could be different amounts of units based from the school districts versus what your charter school, and are those like units for graduation, like you have to have so many language units to get into the university system? So there's like, I mean, what are you looking at differing from with regards to the district? Like what's making yours different from theirs?
So recently the district just increased the graduation requirements up to 27 overall credits in high school to be eligible for graduation from the district. The state minimum requirement is 23. We're looking at a school model that's similar to Mount Edgecombe High School, which is a state-run residential school based out of Sitka, Alaska. So their requirement is 23. They and that's what the state does. So as far as, you know, the number of language credits and the number of science, math, et cetera, we'll have the 3, I think, math credits that are required and 3 language arts credits and social studies. But we plan to also offer some tribal related, probably social studies within that division of social studies as electives. Just something a little bit different than what's required. The district is increasing theirs to 27, and it's a newer superintendent came up out of Oregon, is pushing this idea, and I think it's been approved. I'm not sure where it's at in approval stage to go. They were 25, now they're going to 27, which will include a requirement for every student to take college prep. And we want to offer those things as electives, but we don't want to require them for graduation. A lot of the feedback we've received from our steering committee is that students are ready to do more workplace learning activities as they're juniors and seniors, and have more flexibility in their schedule, perhaps working a part-time job and that sort of thing. And so it doesn't give the students and families the flexibility when you require 27. That the feedback we're receiving is they'd rather have the flexibility to pick and choose some of the programs that they do as juniors and seniors, rather than being required to take, I'm drawing a blank on it right now, but it's advanced placement. It's AP requirement for every student in high school.
You know, we had the similar discussion about requirements for graduation and basically separate tracks for kids, because there are kids that don't want to go to university and take AP courses. That's like, they don't want to do that. They want to work outside. They want to work with their hands. They want to be a building contractor, and they're not going to get a 4-year university degree. So why do I have to take, you know what I mean?
Right. And that's kind of the big sticking point for a lot of people, is a requirement that they take the AP AP courses. And so what we're trying to do in our application is just provide flexibility. And if we lock into those 27 credits, it takes away, some of our flexibility and, autonomy as a charter school. So we're probably not going to give that up without a little bit of a fight, but we'll see. We'll see where they go with it.
Well, and also 27 credits, I mean, that means more classes the student would have to take. So is that a longer school day? I mean, is that more staff? I mean, what does that mean?
Yeah,
What's
well,
the impact?
I mean, currently if students take, 6 credits a year, I mean, they can get pretty far along. 7, I think they get 7, it's a 7-period day. Yeah, so they can get pretty far along, and if they are, I mean, a lot of high school seniors just go till lunchtime, right? And then in the afternoon, they work a job or they go to some additional training that they might want to do. This kind of takes that flexibility away from seniors.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because we've been discussing, optional elections, not elective classes, not increasing the graduation requirement unit wise, but increasing the selection of courses so kids aren't feeling like trapped. They have to take, this is the only class they can take, or to make the units to graduate,
Right.
Expanding the electives for them. One of those being ethnic studies, potentially, because there's not an ethnic studies requirement right now, and we believe there needs to be.
Right.
And so,
Same.
but we don't want to make it a requirement that then increases the units like you were talking about. We don't want to do that. We want it to be acceptable to be used as another, or like a replacement, you know what I mean? And I'm trying to figure out how to word that, but
yeah, we're going to be working on that too. I mean, we want to offer, tribal education classes and classes about tribal government, governance, and expose students to, tribal law, and expose students to, history from a tribal perspective. Maybe offer some Alaska Native language courses in high school as electives and make that an option. But, giving the students and the parents the flexibility for their students when they're juniors and seniors is the biggest hang up we have currently.
Yeah, I'm feeling you there. We have that. That's why we're doing what we're doing in that whole book course versus lab. So we can control the lab. There we can give the kids the elective and have the hands-on experience, but with TEK embedded in it.
Yeah.
So,
well, Mike, I have a question for you. That you talked about the data sharing agreements, and how extensive are those, and what sort of data are you looking to receive from the school districts in those data sharing agreements?
Well, actually, it's funny, is right before I came to this meeting, I was in a meeting with Donna Bussell about the data sharing agreement, because some of our school districts are so small that when we go to the state website, they can't disaggregate the data, so you can't see what grade a student is in, or especially on the defiant suspensions and things like that, because it would then pinpoint the child. So the state of California has limited the ability to do that. I want that data. I want that data that I can't see. So basically, we're going through all the stuff that we can't see in the DataQuest website that the state of California has, and I'm saying, I would like this data. That way, because right now I can see the data for the whole entire county, and I can see, okay, it looks as though Native American males are targeted for defiant suspensions 3 times more than any other racial group. We need then to work on some trauma-informed classroom management instruction skills that can diffuse these situations, and some cultural proficiency on the teacher side. But which schools? I have 31 districts.
Yeah.
So I need to narrow that down so I can take the money that I do have and target our capacity building efforts at that specific LEA.
Yeah.
But without that data, I can't. So the data sharing agreements that we're going for, I'm going through every single data point that we can't find on the state website. And I'm going to try and say, we want to make sure we include this in our data sharing agreement.
Right.
the other thing that we're looking at, because the defiant suspension is one of the biggest issues that we've actually received parent feedback directly about.
Mhm.
We are looking at something, and Donna and I were discussing it in this meeting. We're going to call it the suspension intervention, where when a school wants to do a defiant suspension, and we're going to try and work with the tribes on this, that the tribes and or our contractor, the Two Feathers Native American Family Services, which provides counseling and mentoring services for our students, be contacted prior to the schools just suspending the student, so that we can have a tribal person there to help diffuse the situation, explain the situation, find out what the situation was, if there was some cultural misunderstanding going on, to prevent that student from being removed from school with a suspension, because those are days lost. And then that's continued hostile environment, classroom environment.
Yeah.
So the data sharing agreement, I'm hoping to stick that in there, that if suspension comes up, that data goes immediately to the tribes and to Two Feathers, so that we have an intervention before that child is removed from the school for multiple days.
Yeah. We're looking at a similar need for data for the similar reasons, and we had some pushback just asking for email addresses, and so we have a long way to go in that realm. But I think with the new person at federal programs, I'm cautiously optimistic and hopeful that we can get some sort of partnership that goes a little deeper, because the partnership's been superficial and it's been one-sided, and we just need to work on that as well. And I think a data sharing agreement, I brought it up with the superintendent a couple different times. We're fortunate we really just have one large district with about 20,000 students that we work, we're within that district, or they're within our tribal traditional lands. So we just have the one district, but they've been doing things one way for so long, they have a trouble shifting.
Yeah, I feel you there with that. I mean, we've got roughly 18,000 students in 31 different districts.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
So I feel the size issue, trying to get that much information from so many different, about so many different kids. I think you're very fortunate that you have one district to deal with.
Yeah.
Although, like you said, they may be so set in their ways that it can be difficult. I think ours is difficult, but I'm hoping that if I can establish it with the Humboldt County Office of Education and the largest high school district in the county, that by establishing it with them, I can turn to all the rest of the districts and go, hey, look.
Yeah, that's the first step, is proving that it can actually work, and coming up with an agreement. And you have a model, and and we don't have that model in Alaska that I know of. So we're in a similar situation.
I feel that sometimes that we're creating like the wheel. Sometimes, we're actually carving the wheel out of the stone. It feels that way sometimes, but other times, I mean, for some reason, sometimes one thing, simple, easy, they have no problem with it. But I ask for one other thing, and it's like the world explodes with, oh my God, we can't do this. And I'm like, okay, what do I don't know? What don't I know that is preventing you from doing this? Can you tell me, educate me? What don't I know? And then I find out. But
it's been interesting working with the district. We went round and round about FERPA, and they were saying, no, we can't share directory information. So I pulled up FERPA, and it says exactly within the FERPA regulations that a district can share directory information. So I had to cut and paste that into an email, and then a month later we got the data. But it's just some of it's just not giving up with the first no that you receive, and keep pushing.
That's an excellent point to make, Carl, not giving up with the first no. And I had to do something very similar with the independent contract issue, because the whole definition of what an independent contractor is versus what an employee is. And discussing that with the various districts, whether our employee or is it the independent contractor, and what liability insurance we have, and do we do mandated reporter stuff with our independent contractors. And I had to go and get the labor code, the California State Labor Code, and like plop it into an email to them and go, this is what defines an independent contractor per the California state law and a recent bill that was passed. And even though we're a tribal government and we don't have to abide by California state law, we have adopted it and we will do these things, but these are the definitions, and no, that person's not an independent contractor, they're an employee. So yes, I had to do the same exact thing where I had to copy and paste stuff to them because they're like, no. And I went, pop.
Yeah. So I have another question on something else you mentioned, and that is, we've hired a couple teachers, certified teachers, to work in our ACEs and work with our tutoring, and they're full-time tribal employees. But we don't, in your partnership, so there's a negotiated agreement with teachers within the district. And when we do the charter school, we'll have to comply with the negotiated agreement and the pay structure and that sort of thing. When you hired your teacher, did you go ahead and follow their negotiated agreement or any of, their pay structure, or are you doing that separately through the tribe?
So here's what I did. I contacted the local Humboldt County Office of Ed, local school districts. I got their pay scale, salary and step, their BA +6 and the whole,
Right.
Yeah, I got that. I also contacted my former employers because I know that they use GFOA standards. So I contacted them and I asked them for their steps and tracks, and I compared the two. I compared the benefits. I went through the union contract and everything. And what I did was this. I said, teachers, because we don't have an official school like an elementary school, we go into school districts, elementary schools. And so our teacher isn't a standard classroom teacher. They're a mobile makerspace teacher, which is kind of like how teachers are on a cart and they go from classroom to classroom, but ours just goes from school to school. Right. So we had to say, and I'm working on this. This is why I'm on the contract with that teacher. We were discussing it last night. She wanted to be an independent contractor, but she can't be an independent contractor. She has to be a tribal employee for all the reasons I just mentioned beforehand. And then what they were paying her was far below standard of what we consider appropriate to pay a credentialed teacher. I could not believe that they were paying her $21 an hour. That in California, that's ridiculous. Yeah. So I had to look through funds and try and figure out how to fund this, because besides that, we aren't in the state employment retirement system. So we don't pay into the PERS. So teachers pay into PERS and they have this guaranteed retirement benefit and blah, 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 blah. So what we did is we looked at what they paid, what we paid, what their benefit package was, what our benefit package is. We tried to make them comparable because there are some benefits that being a state employee provides that being a tribal employee doesn't, but there's things that we provide that they don't. So we tried to match it as best we could, but I did think the pay was too low. So we are going to increase the pay. And she was good with the pay increase, but she also doesn't want to work. We want her to be a 260 contract employee, right. 260. And right now she's 234 days under her teacher contract with Humboldt. So we're still working on the number of days, but I'm giving her the option of less hours per day. Like she's 7.5 hours right now for 234 days on their contract. And so we're going to go, you can do 6 hours a day. You can do 8 hours a day. I'm going to let her be flexible. And then she has to definitely work the full 38 weeks of the school year. And then we have summer programming, but she's also tribal members and she's in ceremonies for 3 weeks of the summer, because we have 10-week ceremony periods. So I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate that, because she's got to be an employee. So we might actually have to create a new status of employee. Because right now we have full-time permanent, part-time permanent, full-time temporary, part-time temporary. We have different statuses of employee. We might actually have to create a new
Yeah.
employee status for teachers so that she
Yeah.
doesn't lose benefits while taking a month or two off in the summer.
Yeah.
Because the way our program is structured, it's annual, tribal
Yeah.
benefits and all that.
Mhm.
So that's the kind of thing I'm working on right now, is how to fix that and how to do that.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's an interesting situation, and we have totally different systems, just like you do, and
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to. I mean, with the charter school, we don't have to, but we are employing teachers, and it may not be a bridge we have to cross right away because it's not becoming an issue. But I could see in the future, we're going to have the charter school teachers, and then we're going to have the ACE or choices or the tutoring teachers. Fab Lab and that sort of thing. So, and they're going to be paid totally different and have totally different contracts,
Yeah. And that's the hard part, is when you're doing this with your overall organizational structure. I mean, I have to look at it and go, our tribal employees, if she was put on to full-time standard tribal stuff, this is what would be required of her. She would have to work a minimum of 32 hours a week in order to maintain her full-time benefits. But schools doesn't happen in the summer.
Right.
And I don't always have a summer camp that week. So what would happen when she has no school for a week? What do we do? Is she going to drop out of benefit status if she takes, that's what I'm saying. When it comes, you've got to treat all your employees that are classified the same, right? Equal treatment, equal pay, the whole deal. So I may have to create a whole nother classification of employees, and that just might have to be a thing. And then anybody who is a credentialed teacher working in our school programs for this modified full-time would still be eligible for benefits, but I'd really have to spell it out. And we're probably going to have to go to the lawyer to make sure we do it correctly, because we don't want to open ourselves up to employment lawsuits. That's just not a thing we want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I come from the district side, which is highly structured, and the tribal side is not structured. So it's just, we'll have to see what we do in the future on that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I came from Wichita Public Schools. We had the same thing. We had teachers were on a special contract, administrators were on a separate contract, and then hourly people like paraeducators, school lunch staff. We had them classified. They were called AJ employees, and they were on a range of A through J and all different steps. And then we had technical people like me that were on KZ, so not teacher contracts, but hourly contracts, people that would most likely be supervisors or program directors. So we had 4 classifications of employees to make it work right.
Yeah, similar, very similar. We have 4 at the district, and I'm not sure what we have here. So I still have to learn. But thanks for sharing. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, you're welcome, Carl. I mean, it's good to discuss this kind of stuff because it's nice to know it's not just us that are facing these issues.
Yeah, for sure.
100%. Well, and that's why we do these talking circles here, so we can share and learn from each other and support each other in the work, definitely. So I see we're pushing towards just past the hour, and we do have some other. No, it's totally fine. We want you to share. This is your time, and we want you to share. I don't want to cut you off, but we do have some things that we want to make sure we share with you. And then I know I'm okay if we want to stay on if you have other questions and discussion that you want to continue. So I'm going to let Sarah just share a few things here about some monitoring.
Yeah, so I always get the fun topics. So I come in with the really great stuff. We did want to just let you know that we're headed into OIE monitoring season, and really just give just a brief explanation of what that is, because sometimes there are some misconceptions about monitoring and what monitoring is and what monitoring isn't. It is something that's done annually by the Office of Indian Ed Program Officers, and it's meant as a form of technical assistance. So I think a lot of times people hear monitoring and they think it's punitive, and they're like, if I get selected for monitoring, it's because I've done something bad. That's not why. It is something that everyone typically through the life of your grant at some point is going to get selected for. And it's really an opportunity for your program officer to learn more about your project and for you to be able to share more about your project. Now, not all grantees will participate every year. Typically, each program will do like a certain percentage of their grantees each year. So, particularly with this being a small group, that may mean that only 1 or 2 of you do monitoring this year. When that does happen, if you're selected to be in the first year, know that this year, particularly with everything going on, it is going to be a virtual monitoring. So we've been doing them on Zoom. Typically takes place across about 3 to 4 hours, but we do put a break in there. So it's not quite the marathon that it seems. And ahead of time, your program officer, someone from Synergy who helps kind of facilitate these, and yourself will create an agenda so that you know exactly what's going to be talked about that day. That way, if you want to pull anything to share, if there's something in particular that your program officer would like to see, if Shala's like, oh, I'd really love to see XYZ, you'll know in advance. And that way you can get everything together. And it's also an opportunity for your full team to participate. So this is not something that has to just be the program officer and the project director. I know we don't normally talk a lot about how the program officer can only directly communicate with the project director. And that's accurate as far as normal communication. And you would definitely have to participate as project director in the monitoring. You couldn't just send the rest of your team in lieu of you. But it is an opportunity to involve that whole team, including even some of your primary partners, to really have a full discussion about your project. So that's kind of just an idea of what that is, and making sure everybody understands it's really meant as a form of technical assistance and just a great way for the program officers to get a better look at the things that you're doing in your programs. So those will be starting later this month. So just something to kind of be aware of. The other update that I wanted to make sure you saw is that the new ARP Air grant competition was released yesterday. So this is the American Rescue Plan funding. I think we were all aware there was going to be a grant competition and just waiting to see when that would be released. It was released yesterday. I will pop over in the chat box that link so that if you haven't had an opportunity to check it out, let me see if it'll let me here. Then
I think I got it here.
perfect. I was like, it was trying to paste something else in there. I'm like, you don't need a link to anything other than this. So this way you can go look at that. Notice of intent to apply is technically due July 23rd. That's really just an email to Shala letting her know that you plan on applying for that, as Shala will be the program officer for that. Keeping in mind that when you submit a notice of intent to apply, that is not a promise. So if later you were to change your mind and not want to apply, you're not bound by that. Vice versa, if you did not submit a notice of intent to apply and later you change your mind, you can still apply even without having submitted that. It's just really helpful on the department end to get an idea of how many are applying, because we need peer reviewers and all of that. So it's just doing us a favor. We will have 2 pre-application webinars. They will be on different topics. So they will have different content in each of those. One will be on July 28th, which is a Wednesday. One will be on August 3rd, which is a Tuesday. And we'll be sending out registration information on that. And it will also go up on the same webpage. So you have 2 ways to get those registration links. And then applications will be due September 13th. So you have a nice writing window there. So September 13th is that deadline with everything submitted. So those are the 2 big OIE updates. I also wanted to let you know about an event that we have coming up in August. So we are going to be doing a True Colors workshop for grantees. So this is something that you can sign up for. The difference with this, with some of our things, most of our TA events are just come one, come all, everybody interested. With True Colors, there is some additional materials that you get. And because of that, and because of the nature of the activities, we have to limit participation. So that's why we do have a registration link, and it's first come, first serve with space available. We do have a registration cap for this event. So if you or someone on your team think that this is something that you want to participate in, I highly encourage you to sign up as soon as possible to secure your seat, because once we hit that max capacity, we will have to close registration. If you've never done True Colors before, you can see the little explanation there on the slide, but basically it is a workshop. It's highly interactive. It's something where you'll have an opportunity to talk and laugh and do activities and ultimately learn a bit more about your own communication and work styles, as well as how to work with others who have different communication and work styles than we might, and how to have the most effective communication, the most effective teams, and how you can use this with your team, whether they've been able to attend it or not, that you'd be able to use those materials. Allison, did you have a question? Yeah, go for it.
Is this the, when you do this participation, is this the one where they tell you whether you're gold, green, orange?
Yes, yeah. You'll
I've
either
done
be
that.
gold, green, orange, or blue,
Blue.
and you
Yeah.
get portions of each.
I'm
So,
gold and
yeah.
blue.
And
If you
so
hadn't
everybody
guessed.
will get the assessment, and you'll get to do all of that and activities with that. So yeah, that's what's coming up on August 4th. And particularly if you have, even if you've done it before, you're of course welcome to participate. I think each time you do it, you get a little something different. And then that also means that you may know someone on your team that you think would really benefit from that. So we do have that coming up. There's the plug for that in the limited space, just getting everybody registered that's interested. And then also coming up, I'll go ahead and pop up our end poll because I know some of you may need to hop. But we do have our next step talking circle August 11th. So looking forward to that. If y'all have any topics in particular that you want to make sure we address in August, please let us know. You know, Tracy and I are always looking for the topics that are going to be the most pertinent to the group, and making sure, you know, whether it's things that you want to discuss or things that you'd like us to bring to the table, just let us know. And then we also have our July office hours coming up on the 29th. That's that open come and go time when we have question answering for that hour each month. So that's coming up the last Thursday. It's always the last Thursday of the month. And then finally, we've got our poll up, contact info. Shala did have to hop. She had a conflicting event here right at the end, but she is around if you have any questions or if you need to submit your notice of intent to apply, please reach out to her. And if there's anything that we on the OIETA team can answer for you, or you have ideas for next time, let us know. Oh, question, Allison? Sorry, you're muted. I can tell that that's what you said, but I couldn't get the
Yeah, it was, and I don't know if you can answer it because it's about the new funding, the ARP, AIRE funding. And I wanted to know, I know that under sections 6121C of the ESEA, there's like a whole entire list of activities that are authorized under the act that will be funded under this grant funding. And I was trying to read through the Federal Register. There's a lot to read through. I off the top of my head, were there any absolute priorities that I missed? Of that list in the 6121C, was there an absolute priority?
I'm just, because I like to err on the side of caution with the new funding questions, let me double check. And then I will shoot an email to everybody on today with that response, so everybody gets the same information.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be great. Because I was looking through it, and I was seeing that they had, like, they were saying this was a question and these were the answers and we decided this, and I was reading through all of that, and it was saying, you know, I was just looking, I was trying to find, usually it says like absolute priority 1 very clearly, and perhaps I missed it.
It does have a lot of information in this one.
Yeah. Oh, well, I see. Okay. Absolute priority. This priority is an absolute priority. And it says American Indian resilience and education. Okay. And it just lists, it gives the 9, actually 14 different. Okay. I think I've answered my own question. It's basically all of those are priority. That's why I'm like, is there one that they're wanting to fund more than another? And they're like, no, all of these are priority. So I was kind of like, what?
Yeah, and while I can't give great answers right now, I can tell you that's something we are going to talk about in the pre-application webinar.
Okay, because like the only two, I think, if I was reading through correctly, the only two that they weren't giving like absolute priority to was number 5 and number 14, because 5 was covered under the language program grants and 14 was covered under the NYCP grants. So basically categories 1 through 4 and 6 through 12 or 13 were like, yay, those are all priorities for this funding. And I was like, what? I'm not sure I understand that. Usually it's so targeted and so specific. And so it kind of blew my mind that it was wide open.
Yeah, I think that's where the application webinar will help, because we'll be able to provide additional context.
Great, thank you. I can tell you right now that priorities 1, 4, 8, 9, and 12 are all ones that we're interested in pursuing.
Great.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, that was it.
Yep. No. Any other questions? I know we quickly ran through monitoring, making sure you had the link to the new grant competition, and then the registration link for True Colors and info on upcoming events. But like Tracy said, if you have questions or you want to discuss anything further, even with each other, we're happy to leave the room open. And otherwise, at minimum, we'll see y'all on August 11th.
Thank you so much, Carl. It was great talking to you again. You always give me great info.
Same with you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
It was
Yeah.
nice to see you all. Take care.
Bye-bye.